Kratom, the paradoxical leaf. You have likely seen it in the display case of a gas station, nestled between the unauthorized enhancement pills and the glass roses. Kratom. It is marketed as the miracle leaf, a natural panacea from Southeast Asia that promises the energy of a double espresso with the pain relief of a morphine drip. It sounds too good to be true because pharmacologically it is playing a dangerous game of deception with your nervous system. Kratom is a biological paradox. It belongs to the Rubiaceae family, making it a direct cousin of the coffee plant. But unlike coffee, which simply slaps your adenosine receptors to keep you awake, Kratom is a shapeshifter. It contains over 54 distinct alkaloids, but the two captains of this chemical ship are mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine. Here is where the odd whys kick in. Kratom is dose-dependent in a way that defies intuitive logic. At low doses, 1 to 3 grams, the mitragynine acts primarily on adrenergic receptors, the same buttons adrenaline pushes. You get a stimulant effect. Your focus sharpens, your sociability spikes, and manual labor feels effortless. This is why, for centuries, Thai laborers chewed the fresh leaves to survive brutal days in the sun. It was the blue-collar speed of the 19th century. But cross the threshold into higher doses, 5 to 10 grams, and the drug changes its identity entirely. The 7-hydroxymitragynine, which is present in tiny amounts but is up to 17 times more potent than morphine, takes the wheel. It bypasses the stimulant pathways and aggressively binds to the mu-opioid receptors. This is the exact same parking spot in your brain reserved for heroin, oxycodone, and fentanyl. The stimulation vanishes, replaced by a heavy, warm sedation. Pain signals are intercepted. Anxiety dissolves into a fuzzy, golden apathy. The trap is the legal gray zone. Because it's sold as a supplement, people assume it's safe. But your brain doesn't care about the FDA's labeling. It only cares about receptor occupancy. Daily use leads to a physical dependence that mirrors classic opioid addiction. When you try to quit, you aren't just tired. You face the kick. Restless leg syndrome that feels like electricity in your marrow, insomnia, cold sweats, and a deep, gnawing depression. It is diet heroin that you can buy with a debit card, and their withdrawal is the receipt you didn't know you were signing. Nitrous oxide, N2O. Laughing gas, hippie crack. It's the clown of the drug world, found in dentist chairs, whipped cream chargers, and balloons at music festivals. It's cheap, it's legal, and the high lasts about 30 seconds. Users inhale, get a wah-wah-wah auditory hallucination, giggle uncontrollably, and then snap back to reality. It feels harmless. It is not. The mechanism of that 30-second high is a hypoxic assault disguised as fun. When N2O floods your bloodstream, it travels instantly to the brain and acts as an NMDA receptor antagonist. It blocks the glutamate channels, the brain's primary excitatory system. This disconnects your sensory processing. Sounds distort because your auditory cortex is lagging, and your body feels weightless because your proprioception, your sense of body position, has been turned off. You are briefly dissociated from the physical laws of the universe. But here is the insidious secret that makes nitrous a true odd-wise villain. It is a metabolic assassin. Nitrous oxide has a specific chemical vendetta against the cobalt ion that sits at the center of your vitamin B12 molecules. When you inhale nitrous, it oxidizes that cobalt, rendering the B12 molecule functionally dead. You can have a blood test show normal levels of B12, but it's all inactive junk. Why does this matter? Your body requires active B12 to produce methionine synthase, an enzyme crucial for maintaining the myelin sheath. Myelin is the insulation around your nerves. Without it, your electrical signals short-circuit. Chronic NANG users are literally stripping the insulation off their own wiring. It starts as pins and needles in the fingertips, then numbness in the toes, then the signals from the legs stop reaching the brain entirely. We are talking about 20-year-olds in wheelchairs with permanent spinal cord degeneration, all because they wanted a 30-second giggle from a whipped cream propellant. Mad honey, the ancient bioweapon. Let's step away from the laboratory and trek into the misty rhododendron forests of Nepal and Turkey. Here, the giant cliff bees produce a substance that has toppled empires, Delhi ball, or mad honey. This isn't the sweet syrup in the plastic bear. This is a dark, reddish sludge loaded with a neurotoxin called granotoxin. Throughout history, this honey was a weapon of war. In 67 BC, the Roman general Pompey the Great was chasing the Mithridatic army. The retreating locals left pots of mad honey along the road. The Roman soldiers, thinking they had scored a free feast, gorged themselves. Hours later, they were stumbling, vomiting, and hallucinating, completely incapacitated. The Mithridatic army turned around and slaughtered them. It was the first recorded use of biological warfare in history. The science is terrifyingly simple. Granotoxins are sodium channel openers. Your nerve cells rely on sodium channels snapping open and shut to send signals, like a camera shutter. Mad honey jams the shutter open. Sodium ions flood the cell, keeping it in a state of permanent depolarization. The nerve fires, and then it can't reset. The result is the mad honey triad: severe hypotension, low blood pressure, bradycardia, slow heart rate, and altered mental status. Your heart rate can drop to 30 beats per minute. The world starts to spin, lights become blindingly bright, a phenomenon called chromatopsia, and you enter a delirium that feels less like a trip and more like a fever dream. Yet in small doses, locals still use it as a traditional medicine for hypertension and sexual performance, walking the razor's edge between lowered blood pressure and cardiac arrest with every teaspoon. DXM, the 4-plateau elevator. Walk into any pharmacy, find the cough syrup aisle, and you are staring at a powerful dissociative hallucinogen, dextromethorphan, DXM. It's designed to suppress the urge to cough, but if you drink the whole bottle, which, to be clear, is a terrible idea, you enter the plateaus. DXM is unique in pharmacology because its effects are tiered, like a video game level progression, depending entirely on the dose. It's a dirty drug hitting NMDA receptors, sigma-1 receptors, and serotonin transporters all at once. The first plateau, 1.5 to 2.5 milligrams per kilogram. This is the social zone. You feel mild stimulation, music sounds richer, and you have a slightly robotic, awkward energy. It's comparable to a low dose of MDMA mixed with a beer. The second plateau, 2.5 to 7.5 milligrams per kilogram, the drunk zone. Motor control starts to fail. You get the robo-walk, a stiff, jerky gait because your brain is losing contact with your legs. Sensory data starts to lag. The third plateau, 7.5 to 15 milligrams per kilogram, the dissociative zone. This is where the trip begins. You are no longer in the room. You are piloting your body from a remote location. Vision becomes flanged, strobing like a broken monitor. You might look in the mirror and not recognize the creature staring back. The fourth plateau, 15 plus milligrams per kilogram, the void. Total anesthesia. You cannot move. You cannot speak. You are a point of consciousness floating in a geometric abyss. The danger lies in the enzyme lottery. About 10% of the Caucasian population lacks the CYP2D6 enzyme needed to metabolize DXM. For these poor souls, a normal cough suppression dose can send them straight to the third plateau for 3 days. Combined with the other ingredients in syrup like acetaminophen, liver failure, or guaifenesin, projectile vomiting, DXM is the definition of a desperation high. Dipt, the audio glitch. Most psychedelics are visual. You take LSD, you see trails. You take mushrooms, the walls breathe. D-isopropyltryptamine is the freak of the tryptamine family because it ignores your eyes and attacks your ears. Dipt is a specific auditory hallucinogenic. It takes the concept of pitch and throws it into a blender. Users report that shortly after ingestion, the world starts to sound wrong. It begins with a deepening of voices. A female soprano sounds like a baritone. Your own inner monologue drops an octave. But then the inharmonicity kicks in. Dipt doesn't just lower pitch linearly, it shifts different frequencies by different amounts. This destroys the mathematical relationships that make music work. A C major chord, which should sound happy and resolved, collapses into a discordant, demonic clatter. Your favorite song sounds like a car crash. A dog barking sounds like a sheet of aluminum being hit with a hammer. The why is a mystery, but it seems to affect the auditory processing cortex specifically, distorting the interpretation of sound waves before they reach your conscious mind. The horror of Dipt is its duration. While the headspace clears up in 4 to 6 hours, the auditory distortion can linger for days. Imagine living in a world where everyone sounds like a slow-motion monster and every sound is metallic and jarring for 72 hours. It is a specific kind of psychological torture that proves your reality is just a signal being decoded, and Dipt scrambles the decoder. 2CB, the Nexus. Alexander, as in Alexander Shulgin, was the godfather of modern psychedelics. He synthesized over 200 psychoactive compounds in his backyard shed, testing them all on himself. Of all his creations, 2CB was his darling. He called it Nexus. Unlike the heavy, introspection-forcing nature of mushrooms or the 12-hour exhausted marathon of LSD, 2CB is the Goldilocks psychedelic. Chemically, it's a phenethylamine, related to mescaline, but structurally tweaked to be more potent and shorter acting. It acts as a partial agonist at the 5-HT2A receptor, but with a gentler binding profile than acid. At lower doses, 10 to 15 milligrams, it isn't even hallucinogenic. It's an aphrodisiac. Tactile sensation is amplified to an absurd degree. Your skin feels electric. It was actually sold legally as Erox in German sex shops in the 90s for this very reason. At higher doses, 25 milligrams plus, the visuals kick in, but they are distinct, neon, cartoonish, and breathable. You can see the walls melting, but if the phone rings, you can snap out of it, answer professionally, and then go back to melting. It lacks the mind fuck, the confusion and ego dissolution of other trips. This makes it the ultimate club psychedelic. You get the pretty lights and the emotional warmth without the risk of suddenly realizing your entire life is a sham and crying in the fetal position. But a warning, do not snort it. The pain is legendary, described by Shulgin himself as like having a hot poker driven up the nose. GHB, the bodybuilder's trap. Gamma-hydroxybutyrate, GHB, suffers from a severe branding problem. The media knows it as a date rape drug, which it tragically is, due to its ability to cause unconsciousness and amnesia. But in the 1980s, you could buy it at GNC health food stores. Why were gym bros chugging this stuff? Because GHB is a potent secretagogue for human growth hormone, HGH. It forces your pituitary gland to dump HGH while you sleep. Bodybuilders would take a capful to knock themselves out for a G-nap, waking up 4 hours later with a spiked hormone profile and fully rested muscles. The mechanism is a double-edged sword. GHB binds to two receptors, the GHB receptor, which is excitatory and releases dopamine, and the GABA-B receptor, which is sedative. At low doses, the GHB receptor wins. You feel drunk, horny, and euphoric. It's like alcohol without the hangover or the calories. But the dose-response curve is vertical. The difference between feeling great and unconscious on the floor is measured in milliliters. If you take too much, the GABA-B sedation overwhelms everything. You enter a comatose sleep from which you cannot be woken. Then the dopamine rebound hits. As the sedation wears off, the dopamine that was building up floods your brain. You wake up instantly, wide awake, often with anxiety, exactly 4 hours after dosing. This creates a 24/7 dosing cycle for addicts. Sleep for 4 hours, wake up shaking, dose again to sleep. It is a liquid handcuff that looks like water and tastes like salty soap. Datura, the nightmare weed. If 2CB is the fun hallucination, Datura is the true hallucination. This isn't a psychedelic, it's a deliriant. It grows as a weed in backyards across the world, often called Jimson weed or devil's trumpet. The active alkaloids, scopolamine, atropine, and hyoscine, are anticholinergics. They block acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter responsible for muscle movement and memory formation. When you ingest Datura seeds, you don't see geometric patterns or colors. You see people who aren't there. The hallmark of the Datura trip is the phantom interaction. Users recount long, mundane conversations with dead relatives or friends, only to turn away and look back to find the chair empty. They smoke phantom cigarettes, going through the physical motions of lighting and smoking a cigarette that doesn't exist, feeling the smoke in their lungs, only to realize their hands are empty. The physical side is the Anticholinergic Toxidrome, remembered by the medical mnemonic: blind as a bat, dry as a bone, red as a beet, and mad as a hatter. The scariest part is amnesia. You likely won't remember the trip. You might wake up 3 days later in a jail cell or a hospital with no memory of how you got there, why you were naked, or why the police report says you were barking at a mailbox. It is biological horror in plant form. PCP, the angel dust zombie. Phencyclidine, PCP, has the worst reputation in drug history. We've all heard the urban legends. The guy who broke handcuffs, the man who fought 10 cops, the superhuman strength. Is it a super soldier serum? No, it's just the ultimate dissociation. PCP was developed as a surgical anesthetic in the 1950s under the brand name Cernal. It worked. Patients felt no pain during surgery. But in the recovery room, they woke up screaming, thrashing, and hallucinating. It was shelved for humans and became a veterinary tranquilizer. The super strength isn't real strength. It's a total deletion of pain and inhibition. PCP blocks the NDMA receptor so completely that it severs the connection between your conscious mind and your sensory input. If you try to punch through a car windshield, your brain usually screams, "Stop! That hurts!" On PCP, that signal never arrives. You shatter the glass, shred your hand to the bone, and keep punching because the feedback loop is broken. At high doses, users enter a state of excited delirium. They are terrified, confused, and unable to process language, but their adrenaline is redlining. They are not fighting the cops. They are fighting the demons their brain is projecting onto the cops. Adding to the horror, PCP is lipid soluble. It stores in your fat cells. You can have a flashback days or weeks later when you burn fat, releasing the drug back into your bloodstream. It is the drug of pure chaotic isolation. Phenibut, the cosmonauts' calm. In the 1960s, at the height of the space race, Soviet scientists had a problem. Conventional tranquilizers, like Valium, made cosmonauts sleepy. You can't have a drowsy pilot trying to dock a Soyuz capsule while moving at 17,000 miles per hour. They needed a drug that killed anxiety but kept the mind razor sharp. They invented Phenibut. Phenibut is chemically identical to GABA, your brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, but with a phenyl ring attached. That ring acts as a Trojan horse, allowing the molecule to cross the blood-brain barrier, which regular GABA cannot do. Once inside, it binds to GABA B receptors and blocks voltage-gated calcium channels. The result is a paradox: extreme calmness with zero sedation. You feel confident, social, and articulate. It's the limitless drug for social anxiety. You walk into a job interview and feel like you own the building. It increases libido and makes music sound incredible. But there's no free lunch in neurochemistry. The brain adjusts to Phenibut with terrifying speed. Tolerance builds within days. If you take it daily and stop, the withdrawal is hell on earth. We're talking primal fear. A sense of impending doom so strong users contemplate suicide just to escape the feeling. The glutamate rebound causes tremors, hallucinations, and insomnia that lasts for 2 weeks. It is a Soviet-engineered miracle that demands a heavy tax if you abuse it.
Salvia Divinorum, the reality zipper. Salvia is legal in many places, sold at head shops as extract or incense. Teenagers buy it expecting a giggly, weed-like experience. They are making a catastrophic error. Salvia contains salvinorin A, the most potent naturally occurring hallucinogen by weight. But it doesn't hit serotonin receptors like LSD or mushrooms. It hits the kappa opioid receptor. Stimulating this receptor doesn't cause euphoria, it causes dysphoria, a feeling of wrongness, unease, and physical pressure. The trip lasts only 5 to 10 minutes, but it destroys the concept of time. The hallmark Salvia experience is the zipper. Users feel like reality is physically unzipping, or that they're being folded in half, or turning into an inanimate object. You might live an entire lifetime as a leg of a chair, a patch of drywall, or a letter in a book. There is no you left to be scared. You are just geometry and pressure. It's often described as a carnival of terror. Unlike mushrooms, which feel organic and teaching, salvia feels mechanical and indifferent. It's a glitch in the simulation. The fact that you can buy this next to bubblegum cigars is a testament to how little lawmakers understand pharmacology. Mephadrone, the plant food loophole. In 2009, the UK went mad for meow meow. Mephadrone, 4-MMC, is a synthetic tophenone, chemically similar to the active ingredient in the khat plant of East Africa. For a brief wild window, it was legal. You could order a kilo of it online as plant food, labeled not for human consumption. Mephadrone is a pharmacological triple threat. It is a massive releasing agent for serotonin, like MDMA, dopamine, like cocaine, and norepinephrine, like speed. The high is euphoric, empathetic, and incredibly Moorish. Users describe it as feeling better than God. But it has a unique and disgusting side effect: the smell. Mephadrone smells like cat pee and synthetic vanilla. Because it is metabolized and excreted through sweat, heavy users start to smell like the drug. You could identify a meow meow addict in a club just by the toxic scent cloud around them. The come down is suicidal. The serotonin depletion is so severe that users feel a deep, hollowing despair. Because the half-life is short, about an hour, the urge to redose is compulsive. People would go on binges lasting days, turning their noses into bloody ruins, chasing that first rush until the bag was empty. It showed the world how fast a research chemical could go from a lab note to a public health crisis before the law could even print the ban. 25-INBOMe, the bitter spitter. When LSD became hard to find in the early 2010s, dealers started selling tabs that looked like acid but tasted like battery acid. This was 25-INBOMe, or N-bomb. Here's the difference. LSD is a partial agonist at the 5-HT2A receptor. It tickles the receptor. 25-INBOMe is a full super agonist. It kicks the door down and jams the lock. It stimulates the receptor so hard that it causes receptor downregulation almost instantly. Tolerance builds in one dose. This full agonism means it is toxic. You can physically overdose on N-bomb.
It causes intense vasoconstriction. Your blood vessels tighten so much that fingers and toes turn blue and go numb. It can cause seizures, kidney failure, and heart attacks at recreational doses. The visuals are jagged, neon, and aggressive. The headspace is confused and looping. If you put a tab on your tongue and it tastes bitter and metallic, the rule is, if it's bitter, it's a spitter. Real LSD has no taste. That bitterness is the taste of a complex molecule designed to bypass your digestion and hit your brain with lethal force. It is the Russian roulette of the psychedelic world.
Ibogaine, the hard reset. Deep in the roots of the West African Tabernatenth iboga shrub lies Ibogaine. This isn't a party drug, it's a spiritual ordeal. In the Breathy religion of Gabon, it is used for initiation. In the West, it's revered for one specific medical miracle. It cures opioid addiction. Ibogaine is a onergen. It induces a waking dream state. For 24 to 36 hours, the user lies paralyzed, watching a high-speed slideshow of their entire life. It digs up repressed memories, traumas, and every bad decision you ever made, forcing you to process them. It is not fun. It is grueling. But pharmacologically, it is doing something incredible. It hits the nicotinic receptors, the NMDA receptors, and the serotonin system. But crucially, it seems to reset the opioid receptors to a pre-addicted state. Hardcore heroin addicts go in, endure 36 hours of psychological fire, and wake up with zero withdrawal symptoms. No shakes, no nausea, no cravings. It interrupts the cycle of addiction physically. But it's a dangerous miracle. Ibogaine interacts with the hERG potassium channels in the heart, prolonging the QT interval. This messes with the electrical timing of your heartbeat. If you have a weak heart, or mix it with other drugs, you can drop dead from cardiac arrest. It requires full medical monitoring. It's a chemical exorcism, risking death to save a life. 5-MeO-DMT, the God molecule. We end with the most potent psychedelic known to man, 5-MeO-DMT. It is found in the venom of the Bufo alvarius toad from the Sonoran Desert. Do not confuse this with regular DMT, NNN-DMT. Regular DMT is a visual circus of machine elves and fractals. 5-MeO is not visual. 5-MeO is the void. When you vaporize the venom, or the synthetic version, the onset is instant. You don't have time to be afraid. In seconds, your ego, the construct of I am a person with a name and a history, is atomized. There is no you left to experience it. There is just blinding white light and the feeling of infinite crushing love or infinite nothingness. It is the experience of death and rebirth compressed into 15 minutes. It hits the 5-HT1A receptor heavily, which is associated with ego dissolution, unlike the visual 5-HT2A receptors. Users come back gasping, crying, shaking. They describe it as merging with the source or touching the face of God. It's a total system reboot, but it's terrifying. The reactivations are real. Weeks later, you might be falling asleep and suddenly feel the sensation of the drug washing over you again. It's not a drug for curiosity. It's a drug for people who want to know what lies behind the curtain of existence and are willing to risk their sanity to peek.